All right, hey guys, Nate Morris, MasterLSAT.com. So in this video, we are going to try something new. What we're going to do is we're going to look at this really tricky flaw question. This is a question from an actual LSAT that a ton of people miss, except it's not the exact question. What I've done is I changed a bunch of the words around, I scrambled the answers up, so it doesn't look at all like that question. But logically, it's exactly the equivalent of this very hard question that's from an official LSAT that everybody misses. And this is going to be much better because when you practice, you don't want to practice on actual questions from LSATs because you want to leave those so that when you take the full practice test, there'll be fresh questions. So this way you can get some extra practice on this very hard question where it actually looks like a whole new question. And it's actually a flaw that comes up on a lot of questions on the LSAT that tends to be very tricky for people to spot. So this is a mistake that a lot of people make. People have trouble with this question, and you're probably not going to recognize the question. It'll be very impressive if anybody, thinks that they recognize what question this is based off of. Definitely let me know in the comments, but I'll be very surprised if anybody gets it. But at any rate, you can take my word that the question that this is based off of is a question that a ton of people miss. So what we're going to do is we're going to work through this question together, and we're going to get some practice spotting this flaw that comes up a lot on the LSAT that people have trouble with. And I want you to pause the video, try the question first on your own, if you haven't already, and see what you come up with, and then we'll work through it together. Okay, so I'll assume you've tried the question on your own. Let's take a look. So the argument is flawed because what? So what's the flaw? What's wrong with this argument? Some musicologists argue that because Bach's compositions were generally more harmonically complex than those of Handel, Bach must have been the more skilled composer of the two. However, this conclusion is incorrect. Bach was, in fact, no more skilled at composing than Handel was. Why? Since the degree to which a composition is harmonically complex tells nothing of the skill of its composer. So, first of all, let's find the conclusion. What's the conclusion of the argument? The conclusion is that the musicologist's conclusion is incorrect. Right? This person's conclusion is, however, this conclusion is incorrect, and then it actually restates it in the next sentence, which is that Bach was no more skilled at composing than Handel was, right? The musicologist's conclusion is that Bach was a more skilled composer, and they said because Bach's compositions were more complex, so he was a more skilled composer, but we're saying, no, that conclusion is incorrect. In other words, Bach was not a more skilled composer than Handel was. So this is the conclusion, this underlined part. It's just stated twice in the paragraph, but they're both of these underlined sections are saying the same thing. And what's the support for that? Well, since the degree to which a composition is harmonically complex doesn't have anything to do with the skill of its composers. In other words, we're saying the musicologist's argument doesn't make any sense, right? The musicologists say that Bach was a better composer, and they claim that that's true because Bach's compositions were more harmonically complex. But then we say, no, those musicologists, their argument doesn't make any sense, right? The degree to which a composition is harmonically complex has nothing to do with the skill of its composer. So therefore, the musicologist's argument doesn't make any sense. So therefore, their conclusion must be wrong. Therefore, Bach must not be a more skilled composer than Handel was. Now, just superficially at face value, that seems to be a pretty good argument, right? If somebody makes an argument that makes no sense, doesn't that mean that they're wrong, right? The musicologist made an argument that made no sense according to the support of our conclusion, which is this last part of the paragraph. That's the support for the conclusion. According to that, right, the harmonic complexity has nothing to do with the skill of the composer. So in other words, the musicologist's argument didn't make sense. So therefore, doesn't that prove their conclusion false? The answer is no. Just because somebody makes an argument that doesn't make sense doesn't mean their conclusion's false. It just means they haven't proven their conclusion to be true, right? So it means we have to go back to square one. We don't know, is their conclusion true? Is their conclusion false, right? If the degree to which a composition is harmonically complex doesn't tell us anything of the skill of its composer, that means we don't know who was better between Bach or Handel, or maybe they were the same, right? We can't say that the opposite of their conclusion is true just because they made a bad argument. Doesn't mean their claim is false. It just means they haven't proven it true. That's a very important distinction. Sounds kind of like the same thing, but it's not. Right? And I'll illustrate it with another example in case this is a flaw that you struggle with or that you haven't seen before. This flaw does come up. It tends to be, in my opinion, maybe the hardest flaw to spot on the LSAT. So it's good that we're getting some practice on this. But let me give you another example that I give my students a lot. Let's say I'm talking to you about the weather and I say, hey, Jennifer, Wow, if that's your actual name, you're going to be so creeped out right now. But if your name is actually Jennifer, don't jump out the window. If your name is not Jennifer, just pretend your name is Jennifer for the next minute. So let's say I say, hey, Jennifer, you know what? I think it's going to rain today. You know how I know it's going to rain today? Because it rained yesterday. And it rained the day before. So therefore, since it rained the last 2 days in a row, it's probably going to rain today also. So you, Jennifer, would respond to me and say, that argument doesn't make any sense. Just because it rained today, just because it rained yesterday and it rained the day before doesn't mean it's going to rain today. The two things have nothing to do with each other, right? So would you say, Nate, that argument doesn't make any sense, right? I argued that it was going to rain today. So would you say, Nate, that argument doesn't make any sense, therefore it's not going to rain today, right? Would you say, Nate, your argument for why it is going to rain today doesn't make any sense, therefore it's going to be a bright, sunny day today? No, of course not. That would be an equally silly argument. What you should say is, no, Nate, you made a bad argument for why it's going to rain today, right? Your argument didn't make any sense. You tried to claim it was going to rain because it rained yesterday. That doesn't make any sense. So therefore, we go back to square one. We don't know whether it's going to rain today. We should check Google, check the weather forecast. Let's see, right? It's a 50-50 shot at this point. We have no idea. But for you to say the opposite of what I said is true, for you to say, Nate, you made a bad argument for why it is going to rain, therefore that means it's not going to rain, therefore the opposite of your conclusion is true, that's an equally bad argument. So that's exactly what this argument does that we have up on the page, right? We say the musicologist made a bad argument because the degree to which a composition is harmonically complex doesn't tell us anything about how skilled the composer is. Therefore, while they argued that Bach must have been a better composer than Handel because he was more harmonically complex, their argument didn't make any sense. Therefore, Bach must not be the better composer of the two, right? So we're doing exactly the same flaw that Jennifer did in my made-up example a second ago. So really what we should say is that we don't know. I don't know, maybe Bach is better, maybe Handel's better. The point is we don't know. The point is the musicologists have not proven their point. Just because they made a bad argument doesn't mean their conclusion is false, just means they haven't proven it true. So let's look through the answers, let's see if we can find that, and we'll go through these one by one. So is the argument flawed because A, because it illicitly shifts between two different meanings of the word skill? So that doesn't make any sense here. This comes up as a false answer on the LSAT a lot, but we use skill in a couple places, right? We use skill here, we use skill there, we use skill there, but it means the same thing all three places. It's not like skill has some kind of secondary meaning that we're shifting between one type of skill and another type of skill. All three places we're talking about how skilled a composer is, right? And so there's no reason to assume that we're changing between them, and therefore this answer doesn't make any sense. It's certainly not what we predicted, and it's not going to be the right answer. B, is the argument flawed because it bases its conclusion on two claims that are inconsistent with one another? Inconsistent means they contradict. They can't both be true. So, first of all, we're not basing our conclusion on two claims. We're basing our conclusion on this part. This is the support of the conclusion, right? The degree to which a composition is harmonically complex tells nothing of the skill of its composer. That's one claim that we use to support our conclusion, right? Certainly, there's no two things that are inconsistent that contradict, right? For two things to be inconsistent, it has to be on the one hand, I'm saying, that the sky is blue, and on the other hand, I said that the sky is red. Those would be two claims that are inconsistent. They cannot both be true. There's no two things in this paragraph that we said that they can't both be true, right? They contradict each other. So it's actually rarely going to be the answer. It's very commonly a trick answer on the LSAT, but it's very hard for that to be the case because it would be so jarring when you read it. When you read two things that totally contradict each other in the same argument, usually it's going to jump out at you. So it's rare that that's going to be the answer, but it does come up as a trick answer a lot. Certainly doesn't make any sense in this argument. What about C? Does this argument reject a claim on the basis that an inadequate argument has been made for it? The answer is 100% yes, right? Because that's literally what the conclusion does. The conclusion is rejecting a claim. This conclusion is incorrect, right? The musicologist's claim is incorrect. Bach was no more skilled at composing than Handel was. We're rejecting their claim. What's our basis? What's our support for rejecting the claim? Because an inadequate argument has been made for it. So they made a bad argument. They argued that the compositions being more harmonically complex proved that they're more skilled, right? That more skill was involved. That's a bad argument, so therefore their conclusion must be wrong. That's exactly what we said we're looking for, so that's going to be the right answer, right? That's like me saying, hey, hey, Jennifer, you know how it's going to rain today because it rained yesterday. That's how I know it's going to rain today. No, that's an inadequate argument, but for Jennifer to come back and say, well, that's a nonsensical argument, therefore it's going to be sunny today, that would be making the flaw that we just read in C, and that would be making the same flaw as this paragraph. So anyway, C is the right answer. What about D? Is the argument flawed because it takes a necessary condition for an argument's being questionable to be a sufficient condition for an argument's being questionable? So this is always going to be a tricky answer. This is always going to be lurking in the bushes, this necessary sufficient thing. And it tends to be something that throws people off. Even when they think they know what the answer of the question is going to be, they see the necessary sufficient and they always doubt themselves and they start thinking, maybe it is necessary sufficient, right? There's something about this necessary sufficient that really tempts people. But generally speaking, if you're skilled with necessary and sufficient, then it's something you're going to spot when you read the paragraph, right? And if it doesn't make any sense, if it feels like putting a square peg into a round hole, then it's not going to be the right answer. There's no necessary or sufficient condition in this paragraph. There's no, like, for something to be necessary, sufficient, messing up, it would have to be some sort of conditional logic. It would have to be, if X then Y, therefore if not X then not Y, or if not X then not Y, therefore if X then yes Y, right? Something like that, with using a conditional statement illicitly. There's no condition for the argument being questionable. In fact, we just go right ahead and state that the argument is questionable. Why is the argument questionable? Because the degree to which a composition is harmonically complex tells nothing of the skill of its composer. That's just flat out saying that the musicologist's argument doesn't make any sense. There's no condition. There's no their argument's questionable if, X is true, or their argument's questionable only if X is true. There's no necessary or sufficient condition for proving their argument questionable. Their argument is questionable. We just go right ahead and say it. The problem with the argument is that just because the argument's questionable doesn't mean their conclusion is false. So D is not really expressing the right flaw. And then finally, let's look at E. Does the argument reject an argument? Yes, so far so good. The first 3 words of E is true, right? We definitely do reject another argument here. We reject the musicologist's argument. But is it flawed because it rejects an argument merely because the argument's proponent has other questionable views? No, certainly not. We never say, well, the musicologists have other weird views. The musicologists argue that Bach's compositions were more harmonically complex and therefore he was a more skilled composer. But you know what? Those musicologists are also Yankees fans, right? They also have other questionable views. No offense to any Yankees fans. They're also Yankees fans, and therefore they have other questionable views, and therefore let's go ahead and reject their argument, right? That is certainly not what's going on here. We don't bring up any of the other views of the musicologists, so E doesn't make any sense. All right, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, where I break down questions that are modeled after actual really tricky official LSAT questions, let me know in the comments. And if you have any specific LSAT questions in mind from official tests that you want me to do a video like this for, let me know in the comments. And if you want to get access to thousands more videos just like this one, where I break down official LSAT questions, as well as a full comprehensive regimen for how to score 180 on the LSAT, you know exactly where to go, and that is masterlsat.com. Until then, I'll see you in the next video. If you found this video useful, don't forget to hit subscribe. And for thousands more clear LSAT explanation videos, go to masterlsat.com.